Hey everybody, and welcome to the S79 Home Sewing Studio. So today I'm going to show you how to make a nice fitted dog coat to keep your fur babies nice and warm in the cold weather. I've actually used a waterproof outer for my coat for Cooper, so obviously it doubles up as a raincoat. So I'm going to show you how to make the entire pattern from scratch and how to measure up your dog. Okay, so when it comes to measuring up your dog for a dog coat, there's a few measurements that you need to take into account. Obviously, I do recommend the first one that you cut out, you just, as a practice one, just for you just to check, and then you can make any amendments that you need to do. But the first measurement we're going to do is the length, and that is the measurement from the neck to the tail. So that's your first measurement, and I've written that down on my piece of paper as length. The next one is the neck, and to do that we're going to put it around the neck, not tight, and make sure you allow for the fact that the shoulders bulk out. We are going to put Velcro on the straps so they'll be adjustable, but obviously if anything you want to err on the side of caution and make sure it's nice and comfortable around your dog's neck. So that's neck, we've called that neck. Next measurement we want to do, I'm just going to try turning Cooper, if you can just turn so we can see, is across the back. So this measurement, this measurement is going to go across the back. If we just spin you around a little bit, Cooper, just so we can see. So the next one is going to be across the back, and it's from shoulder to shoulder, okay? So this is, we're calling this neck across back. So it's the measurement from this shoulder point here to this shoulder point here, and it's the point at which the dog coat will come out and the straps will come round. The next measurement we're going to do is the actual girth of the dog. So that is, we're going to measure the widest point around, let's put you on the towel because you're slipping. Sit down, sit, good boy, good boy. So the next measurement we're going to do is going to be around the deepest part here. Come here, Cooper. Sit down. Good boy, sit down, sit down. Okay, so around the widest part here, and we're going to measure their chest. So again, we're not measuring super tight, we want it to have some movement, and the straps will have Velcro and will be adjustable, but it's this measurement here. And that is, we're calling that the girth. The coat width is going to be the width of the actual coat, so not including the straps, and I've done mine half of the girth, but just measure up and over and just decide whereabouts you want the coat to come to. So if you want it to come a bit longer down, then obviously allow for that to come a little bit longer. So we call that coat width. The next measurement we need to take is the shoulder, and that is the point at which we're going to imagine here to here. So the straps are going to come round here. There's going to be a gap, and then we're going to have another strap round here. So it's the gap between the two straps. Now don't make this too tight, so allow a little bit extra, because as the dog walks you don't want their legs rubbing as the strap comes round. So allow a little bit extra and measure from here to about here, so that you can obviously leave that with no straps, and then the strap will come down here. So we call that shoulder. The next measurement you want to have is the strap width. So obviously all dogs are very different, and you want to measure how wide you want the strap. Now remember that you've left a good measurement here, so how wide you want the straps. On little Cooper I've chosen 3 inches, so my strap will come round about 3 inches down there, and that there is wide enough for him. And the next one is the neck strap. So obviously the neck strap is going to come off of here and come round. You don't want this to be too thick, and on Cooper I've done it 2 1/4 inches, so that will come round. So once you've done all of those measurements, and I've written them down here, you can then transfer these onto a sketch, which will then turn into a pattern. And this means you can make the dog coat in any size to fit any dog. Finish with you now. Okay, so having written all of your measurements down, it's a good idea to start with a sketch. And I quite like to do this. It just helps me to sort of see how everything's going to fit together before I start drawing up the larger scale pattern. And the basic shape is going to be, so we're just going to work with rectangles at the moment. So the basic coat is going to be a rectangle, and this measurement is going to be the length of it. So that's going to be 15 inches there. We then take the shoulder, which is the section that we're going to leave blank, and that's going to be from here down to say here. And in Cooper's case, that was 5 inches. We then have the across back, the neck across back, which was the measurement across sort of between the shoulder blades. And in Cooper's case, that measured 8 inches. So that's 8 inches there to there. So then we can look at the neck total. We are taking off the 8 because obviously that's part of the neck. And then we're going to divide it by 2 because it's going to be each of the straps. So if we have that as 6 and that as 6, then the 8, the 6 and the 6 add up to the 20 in total for the neck. You then need to draw in the tabs that will go, the straps that will go round and underneath the tummy. So to calculate this, the full width all the way across is the girth. So you need to subtract from the total girth 12.5, which is the width of the coat. That will leave you with 6.25 either side. Either side, which gives a total, if you add all of these together, will give you the girth. I said I wanted the strap width to be 3 inches. And finally, we need to add on the overlap for the tabs. So I'm allowing an extra 1.5 inches onto each of the strap tab sections. My drawing's not very good, sorry. And onto these as well. This will give us a nice overlap section of 1.5. which makes the total 7.5 on both straps, and on these straps it becomes 7.75. When you draw this up, draw it up on your paper, and then remember that you need to add on all the way around the entire edge a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So draw up following these measurements and then add your seam allowance afterwards. Now it's time to transferring these measurements onto the pattern piece. I like to fold my piece in half and get a centre line. Okay, so with the pattern drawn out on your piece of paper, if you want to curve any of the edges, one of the best ways is just to take something that's round, I'm just using a lid, and just pop it against the edge of your seam allowance and just do a curve. Just curving off the seam allowance just to give rounded edges. It will make sewing a bit nicer to do that. So just And I'm also going to curve off the base of the coat. And the same with this, I'm just going to curve off this edge. There we are. So I've curved off all of these edges and also the edge around the neckline. It's time to cut out. So really make sure that that fold is on top of the fold of your fabric, and if you've got something heavy that you can put on it, a mug will do, some scissors. Improvise if you don't have pattern weights. And then just making sure that your pattern is definitely in half. I'm just going to draw around the edge of it, and I'm just using any pen here. You won't see it. And making sure that the fold doesn't move, you can then take off your pattern and just cut around the edges. Okay, so we have Cooper and we're going to try this on. So let's just pop this on. So these will attach around here, and we can see there, so the bits we're checking is this actually here could do with just coming down a little bit, so putting a curve in that back neck section. So I'm just going to, using my pen, put a little mark where I'm going to blend that round to. Just checking the rest of it. Remember, it's got seam allowance on the outside, so it will be a little bit smaller. And then this will do up under here. I think that's going to look lovely. What do you think, Cooper? That's going to look good. Excellent. Right, so you can go back down for a minute. So there's the mark where I wanted to curve that out just to bring that down. So I'm going to fold it in half and just bring this neckline around a little bit, just to make it a little bit less square and a little bit more round, and it will fit better. So that now will fit much better and obviously allow for the bit to go around the back of his neck. Remember, any amendments that you make to this, obviously transfer it to the original pattern, so that if you decide to make any more, the pattern that you've got is correct. So I'm just going to pop that onto there, the piece I've cut off, and just redraw that in place there, and then we can remove that. There we are. So the pattern reflects the pattern that we've got here. Perfect. So now to cut the lining out. Okay, and there we are. We have the outer and the lining pieces cut out. If you're looking for a thicker coat or something with a bit more padding, you can also cut a piece of wadding out of this and obviously sandwich that in between the two layers. So the next thing we're going to do is join the pieces together. So we need to make sure that they're right sides together on top of each other. So right sides on top of each other, and just line up the raw edges. Make sure it all sort of matches up. There we are. And then we're going to stitch with the 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way around the edge. We're just going to leave at the bottom an opening of about 4 inches so that we can turn it back the right way. Okay, so start off, remember you're leaving 2 notches, which is going to be the opening, so we're not going to stitch between here, and this is at the bottom of the coat. So I'm going to start here, go this way, and then I'll go all the way around and finish on this one. So So 1/2 inch seam allowance, and just remember, do a forwards and backwards to lock that stitch in place, and then 1/2 inch all the way around. As you do the corner, you can lift the presser foot and just help turn it, and just take it nice and slow, making sure those raw edges are nicely lined up as you go. As you come to do a corner, make sure that your needle is down, lift up the presser foot, pivot round, and continue stitching on. And just remembering to stop at the mark that you left. Finish with the forwards and backwards. And we have that opening that we can turn it through. Okay, so we now have the coat all stitched around with just a gap at the end for turning it the right way. Now, before we turn it the right way, we've obviously got quite a sizable seam allowance all around the edge, and this will cause problems if we just go ahead and turn it out. We need to notch. So the first thing we need to do is clip the corners. So the corners, as they come in, so here, my stitching is going up and in, and obviously the seam allowance follows it. So we need to cut into that seam allowance. Don't cut your stitches, just snip close to them so that you have an opening like that, so that when it goes the other way, the seam will lie flat. And do that on all of these seams. So laying it out so that you can see. So we're doing it on this one, we're doing it on this one, we're doing it on this one, and we're doing it on this one. So all the corners have been notched. The next thing we need to do is clip the curves, because obviously when they're turned inside out, all of this excess seam allowance is going to bunch up and it's going to be difficult to lay flat, and it just won't look very nice. So for that, you can use pinking shears, which are useful. Obviously cut lots of little zigzags all the way around, or you can notch it with your scissors. It takes a bit longer notching it with scissors, but if you've got pinking shears, then just trim the seam allowance fairly close. And there you can see I've trimmed this away so that it's much smaller seam allowance now, and it has this zigzag edge so that when we turn it the right way, this will lay flatter. If you don't have a seam allowance, if you don't have pinking shears, then just make sure on all the curves, so that's all of these curved edges, that you cut notches. And to cut notches, we're literally just snipping out little triangles. And you need to do it all the way around the curved edge, just like that. Again, so that when it goes inside out, there's less bulk there to obviously fit into that curve. So whichever your method, go around the corners. I'm just going to use this. Don't need to worry too much about the straight edges. So the straight edges can be left, that's fine. We've notched the inside corners, and it's the outside ones we've just got to concentrate on. So I'm just clipping away. Take care not to actually cut any of your stitches and not to go too close. There we are. Okay then, so we have all the curves have been clipped away and the notches. There's just one final curve we've got to address, and that's this one. And because when this goes inside out, obviously this fabric is going to be spread out. So in this notch, because this curve's an internal curve as opposed to an external curve, we can just cut some notches into this. We don't need to do triangles, we can just simply do little cuts all the way around. And this will just enable it to open out into this larger curve that we have here. You're just cutting those notches all the way around the curve, and if I hold that up and open it out, you can see now that that curve that was once tight will now open out. So when it turns back the right way, it will lay flat. So time to turn it the right way out. And there we are, we have the basic shape cut out. Looks like a bit of a crazy monster, really. So now just pay some attention to the corners. Use something sort of long, not too pointed, you don't want to poke through, but a knitting needle with a slightly rounded edge. I'm using a crochet hook, but just something that you can just get those corners out with. And just make sure, don't push too hard. Remember, you've clipped these corners and these curves, so you don't want them to be too, you don't want to be too rough with your poker. And what you should find now is that because we've obviously clipped all these curves and clipped the corners, that it all lays really nice and flat. And it's a good idea at this point to give it a press. If you have used waterproof fabric, then just be careful. Use a cool iron and do it on the reverse side. Okay, so I've pressed around the edges and just made sure everything's flat. I've also tucked under the seam allowance at the bottom just to keep that completely closed down and give it a nice finish. So now I'm going to top stitch all the way around the edges, a couple of millimetres in, just to really crisp up those edges. So we're stitching now, top stitching all the way around the outside, a couple of millimetres in from the edge. This time we're going all the way back to where we started, completely sealing up that hole. So you want to do forwards and backwards, right back where we started. And there we are. Okay, so all of the edges have now been top stitched and it's completely sealed all the way around. Next we need to add some Velcro to the strap sections to hold it in place. Now if you remember, we added on an extra, we've allowed an extra 1.5 inches on each strap just to allow for an overlap. So I've got some Velcro strips here. I will confess, I completely forgot to get the Velcro from work, so I've just taken these off a lunchbox, so they'll be fine. So I'm going to use the smaller ones on the neck straps, and I've got some slightly larger straps that sections that I'm going to put on here. Now when you put it on your dog, obviously just make sure, just to double check whereabouts it overlaps and make sure that you've got that allowed. You can put the Velcro lengthways, which will give you a little bit of a buffer zone depending on if the dog puts a bit of weight on or loses a bit. So I'm going to cut this at 2 inches. So I'm going to put a 2-inch strip there and a 2-inch strip there. And then I've got a 2-inch strip either side for these two. Now, when they come to overlap, you need to put the softer one, so the loop section of the hook and loop, onto the lining side. So that needs to go central onto the lining side and be stitched around, and you stitch through all the layers. So I'm going to pin that in place, and I'm just bringing it up to where my top stitching is. So it sits there. And we'll just pin that in place there. And then the hook side of your hook and loop tape is going to go on the outside, so that when they come together, they will Velcro overlapping like that. There we are. And then the same with this one. So choose the softer side and pop that on the under. So the loop goes on the underside, And again, make sure it's central. And pin that in place. And the more rigid hook side goes on the outside. Just pin that in place. So this, when we come to do it up, it will go together like that under the tummy and like that around the neck. So it will look like that. Okay, so now we need to just stitch this Velcro tape, this hook and loop tape. And that's all done, the Velcro is attached. So it's the moment of truth. You ready to try out your new coat? You just want to go to sleep, don't you? Right, let's pop this on, see if it fits. So straps come down here. Nice. And then we put under here, Velcro does up there. There's lots of room in there for him. And there we are, a nice fitting dog coat. What do you think, Cooper? Do you like it? Is it good? So obviously you can make this in absolutely any size. Obviously all dogs come in different shapes and sizes. And there we are, we have a lovely fitted dog coat that's made to measure that you can make to fit your own dog. So thank you so much for watching our video. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you all enjoy making your dog some dog coats. So if you enjoyed the video, please give me a like and a subscribe. I will be bringing more videos, including more pet product videos. What do you think, Cooper? Yeah?